Good morning. How are we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit. Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to run through the multi-way ranges versus flop section of the Postflop workbook. We're going to work through page 107 together, show you how to set this up in Fobzilla, how to get all of these answers correct. That way you can crush this section and move on, knowing you got everything perfectly right. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, so starting on page 107, the prompt up above is you open to 25 from the cutoff and both of the blinds call. So we have Jack 10 suited, flop is Ace King 6 rainbow with a backdoor flush draw for us. They both check, and here we are. So at this point, setting the problem up in Fobzilla, there are a few things we need to do. First and foremost is go to multiplayer mode. You can technically do this in single player, but multiplayer I find makes it a little bit easier. When you hit this little plus button up here, it adds a second range, and then we can start factoring everything in from here. So adding our dead cards, which are our whole cards, Jack 10 of hearts. The flop is Ace of diamonds, King of hearts, 6 of clubs, right? Perfect. And then we need to hit both of our opponent's ranges in here. So starting with the left one, we're going to add the small blinds range. You can just grab this right from the answer key, paste that in, hit enter. Going to hit the second range. We're going to make that the big blinds range in this situation. Copy that right out of the answer key, paste that in, and rock and roll. Okay. So if we go back to the actual question itself, we're doing something very similar to what we've done in the previous chapters, right? Where we're looking at essentially how often they're hitting these kind of fixed categories. But we have two different categories instead of like the 5 we were working with before. We're working with top pair plus and draws with 8 or more outs. And then we're looking at any pair plus and any draw that's a gut shot or better. So let's start by the small blind, with the small blind first. So we'll make that the left person's range selected, and let's hit the, what do we got? Top pair plus. So we got that selected, and an 8 out draw, which is going to be an open-ended straight draw or a flush draw. And in this situation, there are no flush draws present, so that's not going to be selected. So we're just looking at top pair plus, open-ended straight draws, and in this situation, that's 19%. Perfect. And let's just expand it to fill in the bottom part. So we need to include gut shots for the draw. Okay. And then we also need to include any pair. So that's going to be pocket pairs below the board and all of this stuff as well. Factor that in. We're up to 85%. All right, perfect. Now let's do the exact same thing for the big blind. So we'll start with the top pair plus first and the open-ended straight draws. And in this situation, that's 23. And we're going to look at any pair, so factor those in, and then also those gut shots, and here we are at 77%. Great. So we can check the answer key real quick, make sure we're on the right track, we didn't mess anything up. So 19, 85, good, and then 23 and 77, perfect. Excellent. And now we need to answer those bottom questions, which is how often will both players fold if they're only continuing with these exact categories? So for this one, I find it helpful to use the multiple folders spreadsheet. If you already have this, awesome, you can pull it up. It will be very, very helpful for this entire section. And we're going to do the how often are they both folding? And folding is the very, very important part of this. If the small blind and big blind only continue with top pair plus and the draws with 8 or more outs. So if the small blind is flopping top pair plus and an 8 out draw 19% of the time, that means that the folding percent would be the opposite of that, right? So 81% of the time. And if the big blind is hitting that 23%, well, that's going to be 100 minus 23, which gets us to what, 77? Excellent. So we can expect everyone to fold 62% of the time. Okay. And then if we inverse it and say, okay, what if they only continue with any pair plus and any gut shot plus? Well, in this situation, that would be 85% of the time they flop that. So 15% of the time we can expect them to fold. And for the big blind, it's 100 minus that 77. That gets us up to 23. And we're at 3%. Perfect. So let's check the answer key real quick, make sure we got that correct. So 63 and 3 must have been a slight rounding thing. Yeah, chances are if I expand this, what do we got? 81, 77. If I were to pop that open, interesting. So it must be a slight rounding issue somewhere along the way. But ultimately, this is where we're looking at is 62, 63% of the time, give or take. And again, you'll find these little rounding things all over the place. It just happens, depends on exactly where in the question you decided to make your rounding estimate. So in this situation, what does this mean, right? It's not just, hey, let's do data entry from Fobzilla. It's how do we actually take this and make strategic decisions based around it. So if they are continuing pretty darn tight, right? They're continuing only with top pair better here. They're continuing only with 8-out draws, and maybe that means you need to make a bigger size C-bet or something like that. Well, if they're folding 62% of the time, that's pretty darn great collectively between the two of them. And, if we look at their ranges, like there's just a lot of stuff that's not going to feel confident continuing here, right? Are they really going to want to peel off here with pocket sevens or with, Jack 10 as well? Like, probably not a ton of the time. And if that's the case, like they're just folding a bunch combined, and as such, we can still see that profitably even with just Jack high here. Now, if they're continuing with like everything, right? All their pairs, all their decent draws, well, yeah, they're like pretty much never folding, but that doesn't necessarily mean we should just automatically not c-bet here. We should say, okay, well, maybe they continue a lot right this moment. Could we double barrel and get them to fold a lot on turns, even on brick turns? That could be extremely lucrative. So it's not just look at this number, and if it's low, don't ever bluff c-bet. Rather, if it's low, think about the multi-street ramifications, and is there anything that you can do there to show profit later down the line, rather than just playing really fit or fold like a lot of players do, or just looking for the most incredibly outright profitable stabs, which are awesome to find, yes, but there are plenty of other profitable opportunities along the way as well. So hopefully that helps you understand how to do these exercises. If you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there and happy grinding.